this morning. This is a work session so that we can discuss with a gentleman from S.M.P. and hopefully with Andre Kloetz shows up from Bauen, where we are in this process of in addition perhaps on the building, reviewing of the costs, and so on and so forth. I have a couple of agenda items, but I welcome obviously the fellow trustees to ask any questions on the way. At the end, we will entertain any public input that anybody would like to make. Okay. So, to start, we have a dollar figure, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, it's more than I thought it was going to be. We're standing right now pretty much for an all-in figure of $1,009,053, and that's including our soft costs, construction costs, furniture, fixtures, etc. Quite frankly, I'd like to know what are we going to be able to do to get this down to a more manageable level. And I say that in that when we started this whole process thinking about addition, I was hoping in the back of my mind personally, and once again I'm speaking personally, that we would be able to come up with a figure that would, if we took that and encapsulated that with a proposed cost for another municipal building and police station, which are, even though they're separate issues, they're still attached at the hip of one another. How we could do this to as close or marginally more than what we were talking about for doing just the library on the other side of the street. That was my goal in the back of my mind, and I'd still like to think in some way we might be able to accomplish that. But where we're standing right now, I don't know we're going to be able to do that. So, that's my questions for you. Any ideas?
Well, for us, it's a little bit more than we anticipated as well. The construction number came in a little more than we were planning. We were only anticipating to, do an addition. We didn't have a whole lot of renovation of the existing. We maintained the amount of area and programming that was anticipated on the first design. Mm-hmm. So the amount of space and needs is relatively similar. But because there was less site costs, we thought that the number would be a little bit less. The unfortunate thing, and I'm not using this as our only reason, but in the last few years, the industry has really rebounded and construction costs have really increased quite a bit, slated to go up even further, and those costs, I think, are playing into this somewhat. So I guess that's more justification of why the number is greater than we all had hoped for. How to reduce the number? Do you want to?
Well, we really need Andre for this conversation. But having gone through this exercise with him on different projects, the number one way to affect cost savings is to reduce the size of the building. Reducing the size of the building can have, you can only get so much out of, people tend to think, well, what if we just use cheaper finishes? You're trying to save a third out of a 10% slice of the pie chart. You can't get there. Even if you make everything out of cardboard, you can't get there because there's fundamental costs. I'm sure because he did the line-by-line estimate, he'd be able to point to things that he thinks are out of line. Perhaps we can do substitutes for. But in the past, the thing that always is the most effective, because that high cost per square foot works in your favor and it works against you. So if you can lop off 3,000 feet,
This is in your mind is going to be a conventionally stick-built construction, correct?
Yep.
Now I'm thinking in the back of my mind, as far as economies are concerned, have you had any experience using panelized construction?
we have.
We have one right now that's just completed, and it was it was all S.M.P panels, so it went up rather quickly. There was modifications that needed to be done in the field, but it wasn't part of the structural system. There was a structural frame that was in place.
So in other words, and the reason I say this is that I've had some experience of my own. I've built 2 houses with panelized construction. And my house I live in right now, 2,800 square feet, was up and weather tight in 3.5 days.
That's the benefit you get from it.
And that's a huge labor savings.
Absolutely is.
And was this building cheaper to build?
What we were told by the construction manager that was building that particular facility is that it's time saving. So when you can take 3 weeks or a month out of the project, the total project budget is less. So yes, I don't know exactly how Andre was anticipating and budgeted this. It could be done panelized, both walls and roof.
Is it worth our while to pursue that? Make inquiries on that?
I think Andre could speak directly to it. He's in the market of budgeting those components. I think the least costly method to do a roof system is clearly pre-manufactured trusses, and then you can lay your insulated roof SIP panel on top of it. So that can be calculated, but it hasn't been yet. I think he just planned it as a traditional stick-framed, very well insulated envelope with a trussed and roof like the rendering showed.
Yeah.
For those of us that are not familiar with construction, what is it analyzed?
Panelized, Middleton Building Supply is owned by the Valley Lumber over in Newport, New Hampshire. They make panels. Okay, so when my house was being built, both of my houses I've had in Tuftonboro built, once your foundation is in place and your deck is down, the truck rolls up and the panels are in 8, 12-foot sections. Literally, you just crane them into place fastly. You lay the trusses on the top, you sheathe your roof, and you're weather tight. Now this is on a residential scale, but the principles involved, are the same as what you would do here. And what would have taken probably an 8 to 9 month project to build a home from scratch, tear down one and build a new one, we did in less than about 5 months. Moved in, light bulbs installed, toilet paper on the bolts.
So, I'm sorry.
My question to you is, you mentioned insulation. Is the insulation different in a panelized building? Do we have less? So
Well,
Can
he
it be the
was
same?
talking, the zip panels are the pre-insulated ceiling panels. Now mine wasn't that. Mine was the trusses and of course the ceiling.
The answer is no, it can be the same performance.
okay.
You just have to
It's the
specify.
same artifact.
Yeah, I mean, they make them in all different thicknesses with more or less insulation.
So I don't want to see us. We have to discuss the number and understand how we got here and justify the reasoning. But going off talking about different wall systems, construction methods is it's still down the road. What we were really tasked with was looking at how an addition could be built off of this facility to meet your goals of the layout for the library that was very similar the other plan fulfilled, but just utilizing this space. And so that's where we haven't really got into all the different ways in which we could physically build this. And I think Andre priced a traditional wood frame approach.
Okay, no, that's
so-
fine. I understand your point, but you know, we're at the point now where we have presented the selectmen, the CIP board in town is looking for numbers
Yes.
by the second week of September. And I'm just trying to figure out in my mind what we can do
Mhm.
to get this down to a more manageable figure.
Well, first thing to do is set the target.
Well, that's true. Personally, I'd like to lose about $200,000 off of this. And the reason I say I use that figure because the numbers that we have here anticipate just the addition. It doesn't include any renovation for the old building. Correct?
Correct. No,
Okay.
no new windows. It would be flooring and paint.
Flooring, paint, replacing some windows, but that's still.
No, not replacing windows.
No?
No, we're talking about, what we're thinking of, windows that need to be replaced.
Okay.
That big
Okay.
bow window out there needs to be replaced,
Right.
okay?
But that's not calculated into
I
here.
understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out a way of getting our new construction costs down that would still allow us some money to do some needed renovations in the old part of the building.
So, what Andre took our renderings, both the schematic drawings and the model and the video, and
Mhm.
spoke with us and asked a bunch of questions about what he should base the number on, and came up with a preliminary schematic design estimate, which I would really rather have him go over because it's his numbers.
I was hoping that too.
And from there, we took his total construction cost, which totaled $1,495,000.
Yeah.
And we plugged that into our total project budget sheet
Mhm.
as the construction number. And then we talked about the soft costs, surveying costs that would need to be had, and then all the furniture, fixtures, all the other things that are not taken into account in Bowen's number. And then we put an owner's contingency, because at this stage of the game where there are still unknowns, it's best to have a little bit extra
Mhm.
for things that we haven't anticipated. It's always important to have a contingency through the project, but on this particular one right now, we're carrying $150,000 in there. So between $150,000 there and Andre's number being conceptual in nature, because he doesn't have hard design drawings, he's going to edge on the conservative side, and everything is going to be bumped up on every line item. So I think there's area in here for savings. I would not just say it'll tighten up as we go, because that can get lost in next year's construction increases in materials and labor. So I think we do need to look closely about the program and is there some opportunity for savings of space? Because the plan is relatively simple.
No, it's a box on top of a box, I understand that.
Right.
Although, you asked me what the best way was, that is the best way, but it's not the only way. As a general rule of thumb, it's a little bit glib, but almost any budget that we've ever had in the history of our firm, there's 10% that you can squeeze out of it if you really put on your green eye shade and look at it and say, well, what if we let one of these? You know, without affecting the basic concept at this level, you can. So if you had said we need to get 40% out of this, I'd have said, well, it's a fundamentally different building. But 10% is conceivable. And, but again, that requires close cooperation with us. We have to understand line by line where did this number come from, how can we make that? It's not a hopeless challenge when you're talking in the realm of 200,000. We're 500,000 down from where the previous project was, and which isn't a huge savings considering that was an all new building and so forth. But getting another 10% out in order to have something left to do this, I think. And the windows, is that really a huge line item? Probably not. Not if you do it concurrent with an active construction project where things are happening right here. They're mobilized and ready to go.
Well, that's true, and we've also have an opportunity to get windows that are reasonably good thing through a contribution factor. But there are still other things, there are things we need to do that we don't expect a new building out of this. We expect obviously a new addition. But we want to make sure that the building that's sitting here that we're in right now is brought up to snuff so you have the same life expectancy without major things happening down the road to match the addition.
Sure.
And that's part of our duties to the town. So 10% you think is a reasonable?
I've faced this challenge many times in the past, and that is just a rule of thumb. Any given budget, you can find 10%. If everyone approaches it with a spirit of.
Well, I think so. I think that's what we're going to have to do. Because I say we're going to need at least that 10% to do what we're going to have to do to the work on the existing building. All very thoughts, Christie?
You said this does include new carpeting and paint.
Yeah, well, I did discuss with Andre, and he said, okay, you're demolishing like the vestibule, and he said, we're not going to just bring the new carpet up to a point and then put a piece of duct tape across the building. And he said, if we touch a space, we're going to redo the finishes in that space. So,
Doesn't include
Well,
windows.
yeah, but windows are, that's a separate issue.
So this price does include getting rid of that vestibule.
yes.
Yes.
It includes everything that's shown here and putting everything back in it so that outward appearances, when you walk through the old building, it will be as fresh as the new building. But it does not involve, and it does actually involve added mechanical work that would serve that building as well because you have a new system.
One of the things that this does not include is any energy retrofits of the existing wall system, roof, insulation. So we haven't gone to that level because we knew that the budget wasn't there for that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if we were just starting with this fresh, we would have made recommendations that since we're doing this work, and we would propose removing the drywall and adding more insulation to the brick, and that's not in currently.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at the number, I can't say for certain it's complete, but Andre is carrying $38,000 for windows, doors, and glazing, and another $20,000 for door frames, hardware, and glazing. So it looks like he's got $38K for windows in his number.
Windows in the old one, in the old building?
No, he was just budgeting the new. So
No?
because on his side, again, I'm speaking for him. He was asked to give you a figure of what it will be to construct it. He doesn't know for certain if that window donation is truly going to occur. So I think he carried it, rightfully so.
Because I'm new with this, was this placed out to bid with 3 different construction companies, or was it strictly one company?
This is not a,
Construction company.
no bids have been awarded yet. What we've done is hired a construction manager who will in turn bid it should it ever get to that point. And asked him to say what's the likely cost, and he's paid for that service of rendering an opinion. And there is.
Sorry, I'm late. Who wants to oil the fire department? kicks me in the butt.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, this is Andre Kloetz from Bauen Construction.
Late.
Late, but that's okay.
The late.
The late Bauen?
Better late than never.
What do we have to see? I've just promised that somehow we'll find 10%.
At a minimum.
He promised at a minimum.
What are we finding 10% from?
That's why we're ask you.
No, our discussion here before, here so far, Andre, has been that the number that's come through is more than we anticipated. And we were trying to figure out how we were going to get this down so that when we present it to town, even though we're not presenting two buildings at one time, we could say to people that within a reasonable dollar figure, we're going to be able to put an addition on this building and have enough money to do something for a police facility. Recognizing that there are two issues, but there's really not two issues because it's one pair of pants with different pockets that we have to deal with. And how we can go do it. Some of the things we've been discussing, I brought up was that we're looking at a traditional stick-built building, correct? Could we other economies to be had by perhaps doing panels, labor costs, that sort of thing, because it goes up so much faster? Is there enough savings? Is there enough savings on the labor end to justify the cost of doing the panel?
There's not that much wall being built,
Mm-hmm.
so I would say off the top of my head, no, there's probably not a lot of economy to be gained. See, one of the things that you have to factor in when you're working in an occupied building, you have to accommodate your host while you're building,
Mm-hmm.
and that just adds time onto your schedule as opposed to building a new one. Right? So those are some of the things that you have to look at. Based on the budget we did was on a very, very preliminary set of plans, and it's based on working with Eric's folks for many years, so understanding the level of quality that you want.
Mm-hmm.
There's always ways to try to come up with savings. So it's really a matter of turning the team loose to go out and put together a complete specification and plan, and then keep coming back to the library staff and saying, will this work? Is that a reasonable accommodation of finish of space and things like that?
Mm-hmm.
So, the more information you have, the tighter the numbers become. And that's, I'm very sensitive because I've been doing this a long, long time, not to throw out numbers that are unreasonably low, because when you do that, that's what the expectation is.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have to all work together to get the numbers to what will work. So, if you tell us you need to take 10% off those numbers, then that's how we'll approach the design and the materials that are used.
Then we would be specifying materials that may be a lower price point. And when you calculate the total amount across the board, it has an impact, positive impact. And if you do that on flooring and running trim and the millwork, it can build up, but we need to work towards that goal from the start.
But we always talk about wanting to do as energy efficient building as possible, and so there's lots of different ways to approach that. From a level of super tight buildings to certainly meeting code, but not what we would suggest that you build. Your mechanical systems, there are a lot of different types of mechanical systems out there, and the level of control that you have with them, the level of comfort throughout the building, is dictated by the types that you choose. And also there's, there are more efficient, less efficient systems, but they all will do the job.
On that subject, are you anticipating our existing heating system to take care of the addition as well? We're talking about adding a separate heating system.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
But we were anticipating radiant slab again, your existing radiant slab remaining, and a new high efficiency gas boiler likely, because that's the most cost effective way of achieving temperature, and have a solar array on the southwest side to offset your electrical loads.
And then before we arrived, we've been touching upon needs that we're going to have to do in the existing building to not create a new building, but still bring it up to, more compatible with the new building. And you didn't anticipate any of those costs in your figures, correct? Other than the fact that you're moving apart a vestibule, you're going to bring that back in. So that's another thing. And that's where a lot of that 10%, back in my mind, is because we know that we're going to still have to do things to this building to bring it back up too. So the long and the short of it is, as I said, we certainly, at least in my mind, and once again, I'm only speaking for me, but hopefully I'm speaking for the board as well, we have to figure out some way of saving some money on this without sacrificing what's best for the community and what's going to, for the longevity of the building.
What do you think the premium paid in construction time is for having the building being occupied? I mean, we're talking a month or two, or?
Easily, yeah.
What do you mean, that we be closed for a month?
No, that's,
Price anticipates it not.
we priced the project based on keeping the library operational the whole time. And so one of the costs of any type of commercial construction is what we call general conditions. General conditions are the superintendent on the project, the time in the office to, maintain operations for the project, a job site trailer, job site phones, portable toilets, all those different things. The longer a project lasts, the more costs you have. And whether a project, if you ask me to build you a small little building or a big building, other than maybe taking another month or two to do the bigger building, you still have to put all those general condition costs into a project. So we've been talking to clients and they're saying, how is it that you're doing almost twice your volume in the last 2 years with the same staff? It's because whether a superintendent is supervising a $200,000 job or a $2 million job, it costs the same. Follow me? And general conditions is a fairly significant cost to any construction project. So one of the problems you have is the smaller that you make a project, the general conditions become a larger proportion of that project.
What if we just said to everybody, come check out as much stuff that you're gonna need for 2 months, and we'll see you, when the building's up.
Well,
At
that
the
will
end of the
certainly
summer.
help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the other thing is that money that you would have spent to extend the occupancy, which would be compromised because there's construction going on, doesn't add to the value of the building in the long term. 10 years from now, you will not remember whether you were open for those 2 additional months or close to those 2 additional months, except that whatever you had to downgrade to make up for that money will be with you forever. So that's why I was
And if
asking
it
the
means the crews do not need to make the area safe for occupants, or protecting all the books with plastic and dealing with cleaning up after every shift, that is time saved that they can just build the building and get it done.
And we're thinking about.
And we've done this before with, and even compromises where you went to a sort of closed stack library where the public didn't come in, but someone with a hard hat went back, lifted the plastic, retrieved the required book, and at a certain time when everyone's on lunch break, that sort of thing. So you can be creative about that. It's a pain in the neck for you, but
Short-term pain, long-term gain.
that's what I'm thinking.
So yeah, you know, that kind of feedback as we go through the pricing operations is very helpful, and we can look at it, you know, in a different light.
Be nice to know how much of a difference that could actually make.
Well, I guess the next thing that we need to discuss is what additional costs we're going to be thinking about for rehabbing the old building, and I guess that's going to be on us, isn't it, to give you a list of both.
Yes, if you give us a list, we'll go through and.
Which we can develop very, very quickly. We know when we're talking about windows, paint, and some carpeting. The only thing I could think of perhaps would be improving some of the lighting in the original section of the building where we now have, you know, this, in the addition, of course, we have, you know, the 2x4s with troughters, maybe doing something on that end, because we have to repair a ceiling over there anyway, whenever we had a big leak.
Well, you know, going to LED lighting, there are rebates. I'm amazed at the amount of money that Belknap County just got back from the power companies on lighting, on boilers, and other components. So there are good savings to be had to help defer the cost. But you know, long-term LED lighting, replacing your existing lighting, will reduce the operating costs of your library because they're just so much more efficient. So that, coupled with the rebates, really makes it a pretty good thing to look at for you folks.
You need to replace that bow window, right, Joe? Do you have that?
The what one?
There's the bow window off
This
front.
one, no,
That's not part of
that's
the,
the,
But would we, we should do
well,
that.
that's pretty much front, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a given. One way or the other, we have to replace that. If we don't do it, the library, we have to.
well, yeah, that's really a point. I mean, there are deferred maintenance items that are also superimposed over the construction cost.
You know, typically, when you do a major construction project, that's the time to take care of those things because it's a lot less money to have when you already have all the workers that you need in place. They don't have to mobilize and come and fix just a window. They're already here fixing or building other things, so it's very efficient.
Yeah.
And even more so if the library is closed, they can go and do that during, you know, normal business hours. So to speak.
Do you suppose there's a way to keep the bow there? Well, I like just the architectural feature of this bow sort of matching that one. I don't know, you guys probably did that on purpose. It's just
A weak moment.
I'd say that was an artistic moment. It really is a nice feature, but I don't know.
If it's there now, it can be replaced, repaired.
No, she's talking about this. The one thing where we broke out of the rectangle.
I like it. No, but that's the one we have to fix.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yes. Oh, I see.
Andre, we touched on it just a little bit prior, but I alluded to the increase in construction costs that have occurred over the last couple years and what we're anticipating as we move forward. And I think it's been significant enough to at least express it.
It's a huge concern. For instance, the tariffs that have been put into place, you know, lumber has gone up 20%. And, you know, long term, I think Washington is hoping to encourage the opening of American mills again. But whether or not that happens is anybody's guess. In the meantime, it costs you 20% more for your lumber than it did, you know, half a year ago. And those are the kind of things that we have to try to anticipate when we do these projected budgets for another year, I do the best I can to try to take into account current economic situations, drivers, and I can tell you without a doubt that the construction industry in New Hampshire is booming. The subcontractors are all very busy, and we know what that happens. You know, we're all economists. When everybody's got lots of work, the pencils aren't as sharp. And it's, again, one of those things we have to try to anticipate the situation for next year. If we're fortunate enough to get good bids at the time, because when people look at the project, they say, oh, it's a nice project, we want to participate, that's great. But commercial construction, it's highly competitive right now.
Would you be willing to hazard a guess? I think the building across the street was 2.4 million a couple of years ago. Do you want to hazard a guess as to what there'd be now?
If you use 2.5% to 3%, and right now I'm tending to use 3%, it would get you in the ballpark.
3%
A year.
A year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what additional work do we need to do? Excuse me.
Can I get you a glass of water?
What additional work are we going to need to do to take this CIP? That's the $24,000 question now, within a reasonably short period of time. What you guys need to do.
Well, I can tell you, I don't want to speak for them, but just to help in refining numbers, we need to further define the scope of work. Generating some additional details, for instance, what is the wall system going to look like? How is it going to be insulated? What's the mechanical system going to be? What are the goals electrically? An outline spec is what we call that.
Yep.
And that would need to be developed, a few more details, so that we can better measure the building.
Have you fellas done any of this already?
No, not as of yet, because your request was to come up with a plan that met the needs to get us to this point, and we told you that we were going to just do what was needed as requested and work hourly with a not-to-exceed fee, and we haven't come close to that.
Will you be able to do what Andre is discussing within that agreed fee?
Yes. We just haven't been directed to, so we didn't want to go any farther.
Now remember though, giving this level of detail won't necessarily reduce the estimated cost of the building. So we have to make assumptions and bounce them off you. In other words, we don't want to give away the store in order to hit the number if we are giving away something that you feel is very important. Because then you'll say, oh great, we got the building we want for the price we want. Oh, it doesn't have carpeting. Well, you didn't tell me that, or whatever,
Well, I should think based on past experience with us, what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of that, what we're looking for is essentially what we're looking for across the street, just in a different mode.
Yeah.
Okay. And,
Do we need those numbers for it to go out to bid? Do we need the schematic to be exactly as we want before it goes out?
Well, there's a difference between going out to bid and providing estimates. When we go out to bid, we have to have as complete a set of plans and specifications as possible, because that allows subcontractors and truss suppliers and everyone to look at a specification and say, here's exactly what I need to price. If you don't have that, then company A bids one thing, company B bids something else, and we really don't have a good way of analyzing what we're getting. So the more information that you have, the better and more competitive your numbers are.
So we need to do this.
You will need to do that at the point, and so if you can imagine, and I'm just throwing out numbers, but if it costs $20,000 to get a reasonable estimate, it may cost $200,000 to get full working drawings with all the plans from the different consultants, structural, mechanical, electrical, fire protection, whatever you're needing. There's a much larger cost to get final construction drawings. And when you bid a project out, you're basically bidding them off of final construction drawings.
And right now, the method that we're going through currently, we anticipated the costs for doing the actual architecture and engineering design, all of the engineers that are behind us, are joined up with the construction budget that we currently have. That gets us to just under $2 million. So that would be the warrant article that you'd try to get approved in March. If approved, we would roll directly into doing the engineering drawings so that the end of summer, we would hand them off to Andre, which would hard bid all the trades and have a guaranteed maximum price to construct. At that point in time, you would know the exact figure. So none of that detail work is planned until the CIP number is given and it's put into a warrant article and passed by the town. Unlike last time, where we were asked to get the construction documents done and designed fully, completely, and then you were going to bid it and come to town with a guaranteed maximum price just to build the building, because you had already paid for the engineering side up front. So it's two different ways.
I think in answer to your question, what I would recommend is either we get together and hash through this, make a bunch of assumptions, and then bring you guys in as a check, or we do it all at once and have a session where we sit around the table and say, okay, is this acceptable? Is this acceptable? Is this acceptable? Is this acceptable?
I should think that would be the way to do it.
Well, that means more time for commitment on your side. It's the same to us, but.
I work cheap.
Okay.
So
Well,
Anthony,
That would be what I'd recommend.
going back to that, having the town agree to the figure, and then having the schematics to scale, does this increase approximately by 200,000 then? Or does this number include the fact that we're gonna have to go back and then make a detailed plan? Sorry.
I'll follow the question.
Which budget?
So,
The total budget.
The total budget includes the cost.
it does,
Yeah,
already,
that's what-
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know
Okay.
what you're looking at there.
See, here,
Can you,
architects and
can you
engineering.
point out
Right,
what,
It's
it
all,
will include.
where that figure is in here?
Which one?
The figure that we're talking about, it's right here, 319, okay.
So this is the estimated amount for
Okay,
the
for the
structural,
detailed plans.
mechanical,
Yeah.
electrical engineer, and S.M.P's.
Okay, that's
architecture.
what I thought, okay.
Then this is an estimate for the civil engineering that will need to be done for all the site work.
Right,
And then the contingency of 150,000. So all of
Right.
those together
Okay.
total to
okay.
319,000.
And that information is already done across, from the building that was across the street plan.
We
Right.
stopped halfway through.
We stopped halfway through the,
yes,
Design of
it's
the-
not all done.
okay.
Right, but that's now, sadly, put aside and off the table. Because we're looking at a whole new project now, a whole different building.
There could be potential soft cost savings as well. I mean, that's another thing to look at. Because that's relatively painless for you guys. Again, 10 years from now, you won't know that you didn't spend money on something that's not tangible.
We went through the FF&E, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment lines,
Mhm.
calculated the new furniture that is shown here, and we have recent furniture pricing on other projects, you never weighed in on any of this. This is us just giving you estimates of what we know is in the marketplace. You could say, we don't need all this soft furniture, or we know where we can get stacks that are less costly. So that lower number of FF&E can be massaged with your involvement.
Well, and I do have questions about stacks, because we have built-in stacks on many of the walls in the original building.
Right.
And you don't show any stacks on walls, so, I'm thinking that they probably don't need to move a whole lot of those.
And all that's part of that next step. If we not kind of between now and CIP time refining it, but once we get into the actual engineering portion of it, that all of that will be worked out. But we're trying to work.
CIP time's about 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
And I know that, you're leaving town. So I should think that you're gonna need to do what you're gonna need to do to get, so when you get back, we can sit together and iron this out. But, as I say, whatever we can do to get that number down, I think is critical, because we don't want to do this again.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Anything to add? You know anything to add, Paul?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
A couple things there.
Yes, sir.
Assumptions about the level of quality of the new, in terms of the thermal envelope, we love well-insulated buildings. But if you don't do anything to this building, it's ridiculous to put 12 locks on the back door and leave the front door open. So there should be some balancing of the level of effort that goes into the new building with what you assume you're going to do with the old building. And you don't want to have an R50 wall out there and have an R12 wall over here. Just doesn't make any sense. So that, I think, would weigh into the calculation. And again, that's what do you want? What do you want the overall performance of the whole to be? The other thing on the soft cost side, and I'm just planting the seed of this, some of the engineering trade can be done on a design build basis. So it's a compromise in terms of the ultimate performance of the building, perhaps not. And that's where you're basically, when you solicit bids or mechanical trades, you simply write what the performance of the system is. You don't design the system. And that cost is shifted from the design side to the construction side. It's an option. Does it really save money? What do you think?
On a small project like this, you can do it. It complicates the bidding more, but so it's more work on our part, on their part, to analyze and answer the questions. But something to look at.
You get 3 mechanical bids, and this guy's using that system, this guy's using this system, and this guy's using a third system, and they all say it will do what it's supposed to do. So then you have to figure. Whereas if you say, have an engineer design the system, and everyone bids on the same system, that's the trade-off.
Yeah. Well, I like well-insulated buildings too. By the same token, you make the buildings so damn tight nowadays. Half the houses I go into are brand new houses. People have to have their windows open all winter because there's no air going. And you're right. I mean, we're not. I think going into this, we didn't anticipate we were going to be, re-insulating all the exterior walls and the ceiling of this building because this is what we have. Right? So I think I don't want to say make it, drafty little box, but at the same token, as you say, R50 walls versus what we have here. Maybe that's
Well, the code
chasing good money after that.
the code defines what the threat.
Well, obviously,
Yeah.
they're going to build the code.
See, I'm saying that usually we exceed that, but we don't.
Every year, new studies come forth, technology advances. We're putting rain screens on buildings now because it makes a lot of sense. there's a cost to putting on a rain screen on a building. Would I recommend that you do it? Yeah. But
It's a rain screen.
Good question, Christie.
So sometimes when you go by homes here in town that are white clapboard wood and that paint is peeling off, but you know it was just painted 3 years ago, but it's peeling off again. It's because the wood never has time to truly dry because there's no air circulating around it. So a lot of the wall systems that we construct now have your wood studs and your insulation, and then a layer of sheathing or plywood, and then another layer of insulation outside of that so you don't have any thermal breaks of insulation, cold air driving through, and then an air gap, and then your sheathing. And that outside siding can be anything. It can be clapboard, it can be brick, it can be cementitious boards. It just allows water to go down through behind, and that front face, the pretty stuff, air dry.
Paint peels from the inside out.
It's right. We're always trying to maintain moisture, keep it out.
and if you think about how we used to envision a wall being, constructed, you had a 2x6 framing system. You stuck a sheet of plywood on it, and then you put your clapboards on the outside of it. Right? That's how we grew up. Well, not anymore. And then especially in commercial buildings. Now you're required by code that you have to have a layer of insulation board to give you a complete envelope around the building. Well, the engineers say, well, I really would like, for shear purposes, to have plywood up against the studs. So now you put your insulation board on top of that, and now how you're supposed to fasten your siding. And if you put a rain screen in, so you wind up eventually putting another layer of plywood on the outside. So all these things add cost to a building, which modern technology, modern codes say, this is what we expect, this is what we mandate. But, as you know, if you have to pay somebody to put another layer of plywood on and another layer of rain screen, all those things, it just has to be factored in. And that's what we're trying to stay on top of when we price these things for you, is to make sure we're conforming to the codes and expectations. Then we recommend, whenever it's affordable, to put in a couple of inches of spray foam insulation on the inside, because it gives tremendous air sealing to a building. It's not required by code, but this is where we start to get into added cost to a building that you can either do or not do, and not get in any trouble, but it improves your building. And carpet is okay. Does carpet hold up as well as some of the other modern materials that they're coming up with? Probably not as well, but carpet is your most economical material typically for flooring. So these are all the kind of conversations that when we have the next work session, we'll come up with as many suggestions, thoughts, and things like that, and then when we go back and price more technically, based on your input, then we'll know where we're going.
We'll try to get you a sort of heads-up memo ahead of this, so that you can have internal discussions like, how much do you like your radiant floor? Things like that.
Well, I think that's where we're at.
Yeah.
I think if we all walk away saying that this works, but it doesn't work in this figure. Okay, and I think that's my opinion, and I think most of us will nod yes to that.
We'll look at schedule-wise, if we can just sort of kick you out for a while, then we'll look at it from that.
It won't be like Brer Rabbit. No, don't make me go to the beach this summer.
We'll give you some books.
Okay then. Public input. Yes.
I just wanted to say from a fundraising perspective,
many of the philanthropic gifts that used to be traditionally tied to naming opportunities of rooms or other things for younger donors are much more tied to environmentally kind of correct things. So some of the stuff that you talked about, like LED lighting, solar panels, those are real philanthropic opportunities for us to think about. So just as we're looking at what we could or couldn't eliminate, we should think about that from a fundraising.
Your name is, please?
Diane Luby.
And we can easily, for instance, the air sealing of the building, which I think adds tremendous efficiency to a building ultimately. We can put a number onto that, and you can go back to the donors and say, geez, talk about the benefits of air sealing, and maybe someone's willing to, come up with that particular item.
Can we establish a line item for philanthropic contribution?
Well, we know where some is coming from already, but I can't give you a dollar figure just quite yet. Skip?
Yeah, I have a lot of follow-up questions. I just want to make sure that I understand what you're saying. The building across the street was 8,600 square feet. And we've just cut that down to the addition that we're talking about is what, 4,700 square feet?
No,
5289.
5289.
52. So this building was a substantially smaller footprint than new construction. Right? And you just earlier said that that's the best way to cut costs is to reduce your square footage needs.
Mm-hmm.
And if I take 10% of the $2.4 million that we were looking at for the building across the street 2 years ago, and I use the 3% figure and assume that that building would be built next year, we're adding 10%. Okay, so instead of 2.4, we're looking at 2.65. Yeah. And you're talking about right now this building here, the new building that we're discussing, and that's coming in at just under 2.
As we look at it right now.
As we look at it now. Yeah. So, are there, the one that you priced across the street, that was a pretty tight price, right? I mean, we don't have, there's nothing else you can save on that one, and there's nothing else that is going to surprise us on the upside on the one across the street, right?
Right.
So, I just want to make sure I get this right. You keep hedging so much on this, on what we're doing here. I'm still not confident that you think you can bring this price in at 1.7 for the new building we're talking about now. I keep thinking that it should be close to $1 million. It should be $1 million in savings between what we're talking about building here versus what we'd be talking about building across the street. If we're talking in the same quality, the same time frames, etc. Can you define that a little closer for us? Can you say, yeah, there is, for the public, for the cameras here, that what we're doing now is going to be X amount of dollars cheaper than what we would be doing across the street? Can you give us a little more defined clarity on that?
Well, two things that pop out. One is, even though the new construction is smaller than what was across the street, there's some work in the old. So that's part of it. And what was happening across the street wasn't, we just discussed this, was an empty site, unoccupied, go to it, build a building. When you're done, you're done. And this was an anticipating, working around and operating environment. So those are two factors right there that would narrow the gap.
Yeah, but can you give us a definitive number that this, what we're doing now, is definitely going to be X amount of dollars cheaper than if we continue with the one across the street? Can you?
I think you could say X. you know.
Can you
speak
say
on
it's
that.
$900,000 cheaper? Can you put a number on it at any time to tell us? Because the reason we went off on this was to find a cheaper solution that the town would be more apt to, and a solution that we could do in stages if we needed to do it. We're trying to get something done, and we're trying to search for the various ways that we can approach that. We can either approach it in stages and getting capital reserve funds that allow us to start work. We can go back and try to get the 10% of the vote that we lacked the last time. We fell 10% short of getting the 67% that we needed to get a bond. So the reason we went off on, one of the reasons that I went off on this was to try to come up with, demonstrate to the town that we're working to get costs down as much as possible and to come up with a solution that actually comes up with a completed project, a game plan, in other words, a game plan to actually finish what we started. And it would help if you guys understood the game plan and understood that we had a police station that we need to build too, and that we're working as a town to try to see both of those completed with a plan that actually works. It will actually work. It will not be constantly delayed because of a inability to get a vote count.
The related question is, what's the residual value of this building to the town of Tuftonboro? You build a building across the street, is this building worth $1 million to Tuftonboro?
The figure was $400,000 when there was a complete study done.
What's that? $400,000 seems incredibly low, so it's probably worth a lot more. So if the town of Tuftonboro would say the residual value of this building is $1 million, or $800,000, or $1 million, $400,000 is nothing, is $1 million, then you can figure out what the real cost of the other building is. And the town can contribute $1 million to the cost of the construction. So someone has to talk about the residual value of this building. What's it worth to the town?
There was a study. There was a study
Michael
done.
Schrage.
There was a study done in 2014 to look at using this building, existing building, for a police facility, and I reviewed that. Because in fact, I reread it again. I reread it last night, looking at what they had at the floor plan of what the police department is going to use in this building. But that the floor plan, and I don't want to get off another tangent, but the floor plan was designed to use this building and to fill up space in this building. Now, if you were going to do a from scratch construction on a new police station, would they need that same kind of space to accomplish what they need to do? And I'm not going to get into that debate because that's not the time. But Skip's absolutely right. We need to figure out how we're going to be able to do this, so that when we present it to the town, we say within 10 or 15%, we can get what we need for the library end of the deal, and have money enough to do what the police department needs. That's
What is the town's anticipated amount that you're able to raise, approve for both projects?
we have no idea because we've never presented both.
Because truly, our team is really looking at the library and working for you to get a library. The whole idea of a police station is not in our scope of work. It's not
You're
even on our
absolutely right.
radar. So by blending them together,
No, we're not blending them together. It's just what is this structure worth to the town? If that's the town's problem to get it up to snuff. That's
Right.
not the library's problem.
right? So utilizing a 2014 report that looks
2014,
at
the use
specifically.
of this building was $400,000.
So it's probably more now.
Well, everything's more now.
So can I ask, because I've not read it, the report on this station, was that to renovate this
It was to
building
renovate this building.
and add a sally port, I
Yes.
believe, because you need to have a sally port for a new station.
Yeah.
So, and what I understood was that this square footage of this facility now is larger than the actual needs of the police station.
Well, that's the $24,000 question, because the people on that committee used the footprint of what they were dealing with.
Sure.
And I hate to use it was not their intent. They used the footprint for the building.
Okay.
They filled it up
Sure. And then
Now-
added a sally port.
and had a sally port. 3 years later, or potentially for a police station 4 or 5 years later, okay, how much space is the department going to need? That's not on our watch. That's something that they're going to have to. That's going to be decided by other people. That certainly those of us sitting around the table. We'll be glad to get your copy of the report just to see what they had to say. But
don't want to interrupt, but for Andre, I guess this is more towards Andre's field. We should be able to demonstrate, or you should be able to demonstrate, or suggest to the town of the potential cost savings if we were able to do both the addition to the library and the police station. If they were both to be done at approximately the same time, there would be significant savings on the general contractor. You would be able to look over, you'd have excavation that could take place seamlessly from one site to the other. You'd probably have other savings that you could work into both projects if they were both being done simultaneously. Is that a fair assumption to make or not?
Is the site for the police station scheduled to be where the library was going to go?
there is
Yeah.
no site.
We don't have a
We don't
site,
have
but
any.
that's possible. That seems to be
This is a
a
hypothesis.
very possible scenario based on comments that selectmen have made. So, if you want to, if the town wants to move forward and try to solve the infrastructure problems that they've been talking about for 12 years now, it would be helpful if we had people with your expertise that were going to participate in understanding the project and offering advice to people that don't know. I mean, selectmen don't know anything. And try to steer us towards a possible solution. I'm not saying the town's going to go for it, but I tend to think that if the town could be shown, here's the library addition that we're going to do. It's going to cost us $1.7 million complete. We have a police station that we could build, that we've had preliminary discussions, informal discussions with the police chief, and we think we could do a police station for around $1 million. The total package would be slightly more, but it would be in the ballpark of what the new library was going to cost. We're coming in, let's say, 2.7 to 2.9 million to get both facilities constructed. Now, along with that presentation, we'd be able to say we could do it two ways. We could get a bond that lowers the tax burden on the town to do these projects, or if the town doesn't want to do that, we're going to start being more aggressive with our capital reserve warrant articles that we're going to ask to get these done, because we have a majority of people that want to see both of these done. So with the towns faced with the reality that there are going to be some rather large warrant articles that are probably going to pass, or we can do this as a bond now and have, everything done and have the tax impact on the town mitigated over a longer period of time, they might understand that it's in their best interest to go ahead and vote the bond and get the problem solved. But that requires somebody presenting something that is doable and practical and an obvious solution to the problem. That's the aim of this addition. I mean, we could just, these library folks here could just ignore that and say, we want to keep pounding for our new library across the street. I mean, there's some people on the library trustees that would very much like to do that.
There are. That's news to me.
Well, I'm almost positive that the woman on the table here has been pretty adamant about not wanting to change anything.
No, that is not true, Skip, and I think
Okay.
you misheard a lot of what I've said.
All right, well, we have it on tape, so I'm
Well,
a
that's
little
fine.
bit surprised.
But that's
I
not what
think
said.
that all of this is probably maybe true, but it really would be the selectmen, not the library trustees, who obviously have to oversee that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Selectmen do have to oversee it.
And I know Carla's been trying to break in.
I'm just wondering, to the public, and maybe this is a question for Skip, how do we address monies already spent for the project across the street? Because how much have we spent on architectural fees and engineering fees and work with Bauen Corporation that we just won't see again?
Well, that's
And
one
how
of
do
the
you remember
effects
how
of
much
not
money
having a
that is?
comprehensive plan. You
But how
lose.
much money has been spent so far? Does anybody here
What's
have
it
a
worth?
recollection? I think engineering was at least 50,000.
No, the engineering's been done.
Yeah,
No, the-
engineering was done across the street.
Yeah.
Did that come in at about 50,000?
I think it was less than that. I believe it was
I
less
can't,
than
I
that.
didn't bring
We-
all of that with
we-
me, but it
Just for
seems.
clarity, I'm sorry, excuse me, just for clarity, the engineering wasn't complete and our total fee for the first project was never complete. We only
Okay.
got the drawings, maybe 2/3 of the way through, and then in March the vote failed, and so we were asked to put a stop to it. So we stopped working on it. So it's not all been spent,
Okay,
but all that effort is lost unless we're asked to pick that project up again and go forward with that building. And then we're able to just pick up where we left off, and our fee wouldn't change, even though stuff has changed in the
So you
industry.
pick up those savings that she's talking about then.
Correct, correct. However, if I could also state that I agree completely with you, Chip, with what you're saying. A master plan should be done so that the community has a sense of the goals. But that has to come from the selectmen,
Oh, sure.
you know, and that should have been stated years ago. Let's plan this as a big, community project, and let's master plan it, and then the teams would be working on it. As of right now, you have independent organizations doing it, and you're trying to blend it, and that's the
No,
Well,
that's-
the Capital Improvements Committee has a bond, or has a plans for 2018 vote for the library, and the next year for police station. I think it was the next year, it wasn't the 2 years skip, but it was, so
That's what I heard.
They've got numbers
That's-
plugged in.
that's what they're anticipating us doing,
But,
as us being the community.
but you're absolutely correct, and that's why I'm making my statements now in this forum, is each entity has been adopting a plan, and then they've been, using a battering ram to try to get it through, and it hasn't been working. And so I'm suggesting that perhaps if this committee understands the bigger picture, maybe conversations should start with selectmen and with police, and perhaps somebody in the selectmen's department might want to start picking up on that lead and trying to come up with a comprehensive plan. There's been it's been a pretty rigid, we've had a pretty rigid environment of each entity wanting to just do what they want to do and not really concerned about anybody else's wants or needs.
I don't want to, I'm not going to be argumentative, but I don't really think that's a fair statement, because certainly on our end, we've been acutely aware over the years of what the town needs, what the needs of the library are as part of the overall picture for the town. We're also in a different situation as we're a quasi-public-private organization with a certain amount of autonomy that is designated to the library trustees as part of the business. But we don't live in a vacuum.
Okay, well, a better effort perhaps a better effort to be made, and that's perhaps the best effort hasn't been made. So that's why I'm getting involved.
So
Yeah.
when would you propose that this effort go forward? If we're looking at the next 3 weeks of having to have figures in mind, you know, that,
Well, we're gonna be meeting with the selectmen and let them know what we're doing before that time. Certainly approach the subject then.
Yeah.
And we will, because, I mean, how I started the meeting this morning is saying, look, we need, you know, we have our costs, we know there are gonna be costs across the street, and I wanted to get them as close, both projects as close as possible to what we were talking about to do in one building across the street. I think that's gonna give us our greatest success for passage, which is essentially what.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Thank you.
and how much are you, is the town anticipating for the police station building?
We don't know.
So it hasn't been designed, that you don't know if it's a site.
There are some preliminary drawings, which, I thought were on the town website, and after we leave this morning, I want to go to the town to see if it is indeed still on the town website for it to look at. Because we had one paper copy here, which is actually sitting in my kitchen counter right now, because I forgot to bring it back this morning, but I want you, certainly to take a look at it. And I'm sure it was on the town website. I just couldn't figure out where they put it.
Well, go ahead.
I just want to commend the library trustees, because just being here and entertaining yet another plan shows that you're dedicated to the town and what's best for the town, rather than pushing an agenda.
Joan?
Yeah, one thing, when we were talking about perhaps, depending on what we do, closing down the entire library for several months, whatever it be, I think is the wrong direction, because I think there are many people who rely on all the technical devices that are available in the library. It's not just a question of books.
Believe me, that would be the worst case scenario.
I just,
I would, as you were discussing it, I was thinking to myself, okay, hours open. What could we do? What could we do to say, all right, so we're going to sacrifice part of a Tuesday to give 2 consecutive days, Monday, Tuesday, with us not around and do some art. There are things that we can do creatively to get this accomplished once we get to that point that we need to accomplish them. But, no, I don't think we'd ever anticipate
also,
closing.
if you're going to, as Skip suggested, work on 2 buildings at the same time, then you would have to close this. If you were, simultaneously, that was one of the suggestions.
Well, a bridge to be crossed.
Yeah.
Well, it's a cost-benefit analysis.
Right.
Exactly.
You can't really say, is it worth $12,000 to close the library for 2 months? Is it worth $50,000 to close the library for 2 months?
It's not going to happen.
Well,
I don't think.
yeah, at some point you're going to say,
That has to be a piece of the computation, I
Yeah.
think, in my opinion. And not just because I'd like to go to the beach.
We can provide that information, but
Okay.
it's very unusual that we ever have a client say, oh yeah, we're gonna leave the building. Because the library is a very important part of what the town offers. So that's why we approached the estimate the way we did, because we anticipated that you would want to keep it.
Max?
Last week, Marianne had what I thought was a great idea about having a bigger, I mean, I know everybody's welcome to come to this meeting, but a bigger, you said town meeting. I think that's a great idea to talk about what the town's goals are, to go to what Skip was talking about. My concern is that no matter when that meeting might be held, some people won't be able to go or will be out of town or what have you. So then I was thinking in terms of getting that information, could you, and I know that there's an immediate concern about getting estimates in a few weeks, so maybe it's not possible, but you could send out a survey to everybody in town.
So we've done surveys in the past, and our rate of return is not generally very good, as most surveys aren't. But
Would it be higher
by
than
the fact that we have had a 60% plus majority vote for every library project that has been put forth so far shows that the majority of people in the community want this to be accomplished, is to get to that supermajority. And our goal now is what can we do to facilitate that? And certainly I'm of the opinion that getting the total overall projects and needs of the community met for within the same dollar figure that people already voted 60% for last March, that's the best foot forward to get things done.
And you combine that with the fact that you're going to start getting more aggressive with your capital reserve fund votes, which only require a simple majority. If the public knows that this library is going to get built either in a year or 2 or 3 based on how much is appropriated on capital reserve, then they have an incentive to recognize that a bond is probably better in the overall interest.
As long as interest rates hold, we're in good shape.
Yeah.
So still no better time to borrow money.
Yeah, I agree.
It's interesting. Putting money in the capital reserve is always a wise method because it builds awareness, and then the community understands we've already got so much in. We should just make the final investment in a bond to get us over the goal. What I find interesting is now this conversation of combining efforts to come up with one number, which was close to what you approved last time. We've not seen that to be a successful effort in other communities around the state of New Hampshire. When towns try to do police and fire, you can blend that easily enough. But when you try to do a library and a safety complex, then you have 2 different interest groups that have issue with one or the other, and it complicates matters. What's proven successful over and over for years is a proper planned approach. Here's the master plan, here's the CIP, Project X is planned in 2020, Project Y is planned for 2025, and so the town is aware of what they're going for, and you take one at a time, one chunk at a time, and you invest in one at a time. And you are typically able to get the majority. The supermajority is always a challenge. It's not just with your town.
But so you're basing that on towns with a population of about 2,600 people, because that's about what we have here. It's a really small town.
It's a
and
small
it works
town, but
a lot differently than even Wolfboro works.
A percentage is a percentage. It doesn't matter the population.
Yeah, but okay. I would tend to think that these people are pretty knowledgeable about what's going down. A pretty well informed public.
My apologies. Anthony's a passionate person. When he's in a project, he's in it 110%. We are not political consultants. We're pencil jockeys.
Yeah.
Don't engage us in this conversation.
Smart man.
I wanted to say, I agree with what you said, though. I think this project started years ago with the police and the library together, and the town couldn't get their arms around the 2 projects. And there were political sides, Skip, that really did not want the police station for love or money, and the same on the other side for the library. And the CIP has, for years, has said that the town needs both, and we couldn't seem to get there. And we have master plan. It's going back and doing it all over again makes no sense to me. It's all been there all the way along.
Marion?
Yeah, I'd just like to respond to both Max and Skip at the same time. So, Max, I'm referring back to the times when the police and fire were an issue, and we came together as a group and met several different times in August, and we came to a conclusion that police and fire were not going to work together. All right, that was the decision that was the result of those meetings. And Skip, I think what you're doing is going to the operation of my mind, and that's not where I am. I am playing the devil's advocate. I am not 100% behind the project across the street or 100% behind this. I was very grateful when you came in with that little box of paper and put it over and said, we can do this. And I thought, oh, that's a very interesting concept. And I started listening very carefully. I was very frustrated when I realized that not only can we do that, but we can move out back. I'm not 100% gifted and invested in that project across the street or 100% invested here. I'm invested in what the town wants, and I want to know what other people in this town want. I'm very happy that you brought that box to us. I mean, I was really impressed when I said, geez, we could drop a box over this and make this a much bigger space and stay right here. Because I know several of my friends are very happy with the small library, they'd like to stay in it. But I know from working with the staff here, we need a bigger space. And that was a very nice space over there. And I just keep thinking, what's going to be the best plan ultimately for the town? And I am 100% behind the police department. And I'm flabbergasted that some people in this town have this tunnel vision that they cannot see the forest for the trees. They cannot see the police department needs because of certain individuals. And that's what people keep saying to me. Well, we don't want them to have that. Well, it's not them, it's us having a decent police station that is far better than what we have right now. I mean, I was in that town office one day when there was a critical situation going on, and the police chief was called into the welfare office, and people came into the door and went, ooh, and they ran out. They were afraid. They knew something bad was going on. That is not a safe situation for where that police department is. And it's just an accident waiting to happen. So we need both things. And we're not the ones that made the decision to put the library first. The selectmen put the library first.
Well, as I say, let's plow our field. Let's plow our field by doing what we need to do. But when we meet with the selectmen, we will try and point out that this is something that we feel needs to be looked at as well.
Somehow they got the Taj Mahal fire station built without even an outside excess room for functions. So how did the fire station get?
We need excess room for functions.
I understand that outside people can't use that large fire station, and if there's some room at an outside entryway that could be rented out to use by outside people.
It has a meeting room.
Has a meeting room, but I understand it has no outside access, so it can't be accessed by people from the outside.
Yeah, well, that's because it was the fire station built to be a fire station.
Okay.
It was not built to be the library with a meeting room, which is what this room is used for.
But either way, the fire station was approved and built at $2.5 million.
Yeah, about that.
Well, construction was less than 1.9.
So, yeah, about two plus. Okay then.
My understanding was that was not without controversy as well.
Well, no, the original one was a lot more controversial.
That was gonna be a public safety building with both police and fire in it, and that was voted down. And then they came back the following year with just the fire station.
All right, so you have your marching orders for all intents and purposes. You're leaving town. Enjoy yourself.
Catch big fish.
Look forward to hearing from you as soon as possible. And
So let's talk though about schedules and meetings, and when is the CIC committee looking for?
Well, the CIP, I got an email yesterday, said the CIP would like to have everything in by this September 8th, which is not going to happen. And it never has, but I would like to think certainly by the middle of the month.
So I will be back on the 28th. So if we need to work, we have to do that, because I'm away again.
I'm leaving again.
2nd of September, I'm back the 12th. So I can have someone in my office work on estimates while I'm away, but there's a window where I can work on things the week of the 28th. We have everything ready to go.
So tentatively look at the 31st then? Thursday being a good day?
I'm gonna be home here for most of next week.
Next week.
That's next week.
Yeah, that's the.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. That would be better too.
Is have the work session next week,
Okay.
develop the outline, and that would give you guys, some time to put down everything on paper, and then I'll jump on it that week, the last week of August, and try to get.
So we do it, you say next Thursday?
I think we should rough something out and get it to you ahead of time, and then have you come, or we'll come, or whatever.
You want to shoot for the 21st?
And what I'm saying is, I will not be here from the 21st through the 23rd. I will be out of town, so I won't have the chance to look at anything.
Well,
You say you're calling the 21st to the 23rd?
Yeah, I'll be out the 24th, but that doesn't give anybody here a chance to look at anything.
Conversation.
Well,
You see what I mean?
but if you, if your email, while you're gone, just look at them.
I'm gone.
Okay. You're gone, gone.
I'm gone.
What about
One of the
Friday?
days.
No.
Friday the 25th, is that better?
Friday the 25th better?
Okay with you guys.
Friday the 25th?
So I'll jump on things when I get back.
Yep. Okay, 9:25.
Here,
Yes. That works. We start later in the morning because
Doesn't work.
we start at 9, so you guys don't have to get to the down patrol. We'll go for 9:25, 9 o'clock.
They look at
yeah.
8:25.
9, so it gives them more time to get up here. We had to do it early this morning for the ground rate. Had to get in and out early. Thank you very much. Yes,
You
Joe.
those dates again, are you gonna meet with the selectmen before these gentlemen get back, or
I'm gonna go after we leave here and see if we can get on to the next selectmen's agenda. Just to
okay,
let them know what we've talked about today.
alright?
So,
And you're gonna meet when with these gentlemen again?
the 25th,
25th, okay.
Is that a work session?
yes.
September.
So it's not a public
Of
forum?
August, 25th of
Yes.
August.
Oh, August 25th?
Yes, next Friday.
Oh,
Oh, it's August 25th? Is that during Old Home Days?
Yes, it is.
Is that the first day of Old Home Day?
No, that's
No.
Saturday.
Okay, so, but we're, in that, we're a couple hours.
so is breakfast going to be served at this
No, that's
No.
the next day.
today?
Yeah, sorry, you gotta come back on the 26th if you want
Okay,
breakfast.
I'm gonna find out, for your personal notification, what we're drawing for process for this building, for the police station, just so you'll know.
Mhm.
Okay, if I can't find the whole report online at the town hall, then I'll make some, I'll scan a few, just to give you an idea of things. Okay?
I just wanted to say, I feel compelled to say, this guy's the messenger, don't shoot him.
We don't kill anybody.
Um,
Because I was surprised I never fired anybody, made their lives so goddamn miserable.
well,
Thank you all.
I missed the bad part.
no, you don't.